Thank you, Ahmed, for joining in. Uh, Hello, good evening, good evening, good evening. Thank you for tuning in. Here is Funton Daniel. I will be speaking live here from the great state of Texas, here in the United States. If you just join in, please could you share, and I will be speaking few in it momentarily. And thank you for tuning in. Uh, Good morning, good evening, good evening, and I just want to thank all of you that are tuned in this evening. This is Funta Daniel speaking here from the great state of Texas, here in the United States. I know many of my fans that will be watching this evening are probably sleeping. And so this is a very, very important, urgent, or important and appeal that I will be making this evening. And I think it is, if you happen to be watching, please can you share this message? I want to take a moment to thank all of you that are still awake or are still up this evening. So it is very, very important. It's very crucial that I'm bringing up this message this late hour of the night. I know it's 8 p.m. This is a late hours news broadcast that I will be broadcast live here from the great state of Texas, here in the United States. I know today marking the president is going to be pardoned the turkey, marking the days of the Thanksgiving. But why it is an amazing day, it's wonderful Thanksgiving here in the United States. So many families will be traveling or will be crisscrossing, meet their loved ones, and to celebrate this wonderful day, the Thanksgiving. Is a marking and one of the most amazing days here in the United States. that many family will have to travel a long distance. Some might be flying, some might be doing journey, travel journey, whatever the distance that people will be doing. And I wish you all a safe journey for a wonderful and amazing family here in these wonderful nations here on earth. However, not many people will be traveling, but this in Africa, some people are celebrating because they are haven't been adapting the United States culture, but many people are not aware. But however, I'm bringing this wonderful nation, these wonderful celebrations that marking this wonderful day, and people will be hitting the road. At least more than 4 million people will be crisscrossing. Some might be flying, some might be traveling by road, some might be whatever the means that they will be using. So remember that the road will be crowded as people trying to meet their loved ones to celebrate this wonderful day called the Thanksgiving. But however, this is what I am appealing to the United States president about the people of Southern Cameroon. This is the most important thing that I am appealing the second time to the US government. So I am asking, this my an appeal is an appeal to the United States government. It is quite difficult. I mean, I just got off from work this evening. I just returned home, but I am returning home with disbelief. I am returning home with shock. I am returning home with pain, and I feel this on behalf of the people of Southern Cameroon. I think the United States, and I'm appealing to the United States government that it is imperative that the United States government take this as a matter of urgency. And if you are watching this video or if you're watching this broadcast this evening, please could you relate it to the United States Department of Defense? Could you relate it to the U.S. Department of U.S. State Department? Could you relay this message to the White House? Could you relay this message to the U.S. Congress? Could you relay this message to the U.S. Senate? Could you relay this message to the State Department? It is an urgent appealing. I know we are a nation. We are a nation that is built upon Christianity. Why United States government try to separate between Christian and the government? Because the government shouldn't be mainly with the Christians. But however, the Christians work together within the United States government. And so this appealing that I'm making this evening is what I have seen that is happening in the Southern Cameroon territory. I understand that the United States has a lot of things that the United States can do, but this is a special appeal that I'm asking United States government this evening. If you are watching this video or this message or this live broadcast that I'm making this evening, then you can relate this message to the United States government. There is ongoing atrocity that is carried out by the military of La Republique, which is very deplorable and unimaginable. I am speaking this because I am obligated to speak because it is quite devastating. I mean, you can imagine that the military of La Republique tie a human being and deposit on the freeway and using a truck to crush the head. That is that is the most deplorable thing that I can ever see in the entire world. It is quite devastating. As a military must be held with a standard. Military must have a certain standard that they must be held accountable. I can imagine that the military of La Republique du Cameroun will tie a human being and deposit on the highway and use a truck and crush the person individual's head while he's being tied. That is the most cruel behavior that should be condemned to the highest level. I am sure the United States is watching this. I am sure CIA is watching this. I am sure the U.S. State Department is watching this. I am sure the U.S. State Department is watching. I am sure the U.S. Congress is watching. I am sure the U.S. Senate is watching. I am sure the State Department is watching. I am sure the U.S. citizens are watching. It is quite deplorable that such a military can carry on such action in these deplorable conditions. I mean, military has a certain standard and obligation that they must respect. And they must respect human dignity, irrespective, irrespective of the consequence. Whatever has happened, they must be held by a standard. And that standard is a universal norm that every military, irrespective, whatever the circumstances, there must be a norms that they should be respected. When a military ties human beings' arms and fold them behind both his arm and his leg and allowed on the freeway to be crushed, that is the most cruel behavior that one must take into action. I am appealing this evening to the U.S. Department of Defense. I am appealing this evening to the U.S. Congress. I am appealing to hear. I think it's not the time that they say a do nothing Congress, a do nothing White House, a do nothing U.S. Department of Defense. I think it is very deplorable. It is absolutely deplorable. I think United States, I understand that United States hands are tied, but in an era where human shields are not a human value and dignity, we are a Christian nation. We are a Christian nation. And majority of the population of these great nations are Christian. Before our obligations, we are held by a standard. And that standard, we must ensure that that standard is maintained throughout the world. It is not because it has nothing. It is not because it's black race or white race or whatever race it is. This is absolutely deplorable. I can imagine that the United States will ignore that a military of La Republique du Cameroun will tie a human's arms, behind and tie both legs and allow that human on the freeway to be crushed by the military truck. That is a deplorable thing that I can't visualize exactly what I see. But I think the United States has an obligation to do something about it. If the United States cannot stand up and address this particular issue, if the United States president cannot stood on the media and address this as an urgent issue, I think we are a nation that is going beyond our own moral obligations, our moral value, our moral that we are a Christian nation, and that we must stand and protect human irrespective of what color they are, wherever they are, and what they are obligated to. I think we as a nation has an obligation as a Christian first, and that we must value irrespective of whether it is in our nation's United States. We have a moral value. We have a moral obligation. We have a duty. And it is enshrined in our constitution that we as a society, we must stand for human dignity. I can't believe it is absolutely deplorable that when I watch those images, when a human being, irrespective of whatever it is, a human being tied, his arms tied behind, and left on the freeway to be crushed, his head to be crushed. That is something that I am sure the U.S. Department of Defense will never tolerate such a behavior. I think it's time that we stand as a nation. Even if Britain, the colonial nations, that they have been speaking about them for consistently, if Britain is irrational, if Britain has a irrational mind, if Britain doesn't have a prime minister that can stand up and address this moral issue, then I think the United States needs to step ahead and say, I, as a nation, I condemn this behavior. I stood for human dignity because that is not the value we cherish. That is not the United States I believe in. That is not the government that I see. We should be able to tell our whoever the adversary that this is a moral behavior that we are condemning to the highest level. I think it's time. I cannot imagine what I see because the picture and the images is deplorable and that I can't portray here. But I believe that the United States government, whom I trust, should be able to stand up and say, no, we condemn this to the highest level. It is quite difficult that I can see these images and believe that it is happening in a nation. I think the State Department or US Department of Defense, by pulling its military out of Cameroon, is an obligation that they support human dignity. But when the United States fail to do something when people are living in agony, we have a moral obligation that we are obligated to do something against human shield. If we can block a people, immigrants to travel, then we should have a moral duty to stand up for any nation that stood up against moral behavior and promoting immoral behavior towards its own citizens. We as a sovereign nation, we have the power to do so. We have a duty and we are capable, and we don't have any nation that will stood up and oppose us. As a nurse by profession, I believe we have an ethical standard that govern our professions. As a nurse, I believe that we have ethical standard that govern our profession. And if we have an ethical principle that govern our profession, then any other organization must have an ethical principle that govern their own operation. But if military doesn't have an ethical principles that govern their operation, then we need to step up and tell them that we have an obligation, because we cannot allow this to be continuous in that part of the world. It doesn't cost us $1 billion for us to act or intervene on behalf of to support human dignity. We have a moral. Are we a nation that we support immoral, or we are a nation that support morals? I believe we are a nation that we support morals and that we should stand up for our obligations. This is quite imperative that I cannot in any circumstances visualize what La Republique du Cameroun is constantly doing with its military against another nation that has no value over that nation. The people of Southern Cameroon is a nation, and United Nations standard govern recognizing the people of Southern Cameroon as a sovereign nation. United States in 1961 voted to recognize the people of Southern Cameroon as a sovereign nation. It is not a making up document. The United States unanimously has supported one of the nations that supported and recognizing the people of Southern Cameroon as a sovereign nation. La Republique, there is no legal document that governs La Republique over the people of Southern Cameroon. And therefore, La Republique cannot in every circumstances become the immoral brutality over the people of Southern Cameroon. It is quite difficult, and that I am bringing this evening because I believe in the United States. I believe in the United States government. I believe the government of this United States is a moral government, the government that is built on moral value. I urge the United States, I urge CIA to take a second look and value whether is that the moral that the United States efforts is governed. I am asking the U.S. Department of Defense, is that the moral that they govern the U.S. Department of Defense? I am asking the State Department, is that the moral and the value of the State Department? Is it because they don't have, is it because they are less threat to the United States that the United States doesn't care much about it? Is that because the United States Department of Defense cannot intervene because it has no nuclear weapons? Because they don't have nuclear weapons, so it's less value for the United States to intervene. I think we have a moral obligation to do something when we realize that something is absolutely wrong here. Do we have to focus on the nations that have nuclear weapons so that we feel that it is a threat to the United States? But we should also look as a society that a nation that it cannot tolerate to its own people, then we have the duty to tell them what we believe is the value of we cherish. Is it because they have no nuclear weapons? And since they have no nuclear weapons, and it's not a threat, indirect threat to the United States, then why do we have to care? I think we have an obligation as people of the advanced society that we can do something and make a difference to the community. If we are preventing people from migrating, then we should have a moral conscience that we have to do something when we realize that people are supporting a government that is not accountable, an atrocity government, a dictatorship government. We have an obligation as an advanced society that we must stand and support human dignity. I am urging the US government. I am urging the US CIA. I am urging US Department of Defense. I am urging the US Senate. I am urging the US Congress. This is not an issue whether it is a Republican. This is not an issue whether it is Democrats. This is a moral conscience that we believe that we have an obligation. This is a moral conscience that we are a sovereign nation, that we have a duty. We are not obligated to any intervention, but we will look at the conscience that is judging our mind, and then we visualize what is happening around the world. And we believe that we have a power to do something. And we deliberately ignore because it is not within the soil of the United States. I think we are making immoral judgment that we cannot do something about it. Maybe I am overemphasizing these problems, but I think the United States that I know of, the government that I know of, the government that I believe on can do something. I think if Britain cannot recognize that they have a moral duty to immediately send the British Marine to intervene on this crisis, then I am lost here. I don't know whether it's still the British that I know or it's the wrong British that I have. That is the British that is governed by the wrong person at a particular time. Then I am lost in total. But we have an obligation. We have a moral value. We have a moral obligation to do something when we realize that there is immoral going on somewhere. I can imagine that a military of a government, a military will tie a human being, his arms, and his back, and tie his legs that he couldn't even mingle or move, and place in the freeway and as a vehicle to crush. That is the immoral of a human, of a military that ought to be crushed and immediately amplify the United States to do something. We all acknowledge that the United States cannot do everything at all times. But when there is an immoral that is going on, we have an obligation to do something for the peace cohesion of that particular environment. We cannot sit and fold our arms as though we are not seeing what is happening. We all are aware, but can we do something? I believe the United States has an obligation that we can do something and make a difference to that particular nation. It is painful. It is absolutely painful. I mean, imagine that parents, imagine that old person, an old man that has sacrificed his wages or his income, his or her income, basically $40 a month. And so, which $40 a month, those are the one that is actually earning a reasonable income, $40 a month. He has been in that job for 30 years. And that income he has managed to build a little hut and home. And that is where his family lives together. And the military goes and burns those homes. That is an act, a gross immoral that I will never, in any circumstances, be tolerant to this. I mean, we are a nation. We are built on Christianity. We value human And as a Christian nation, we have an obligation that we have a moral conscience that judge our own inner mind, that we reason as human beings, and that we recognize that we are a sovereign nation. We know we went through crisis to become what we are. And we know that we are prepared for any eventuality. But it is our obligation to acknowledge that there is something that we can do something to make a difference to the world community. We cannot sit and fold our arms as though we are not aware. I believe this is the government that I trust. This is the government that I believe in. I believe that the government can make a difference and that human beings will recognize. It takes less cost if U.S. Marine can drop in Anglophone territory, the Southern Cameroon, the former British territory, and believe that they can do something. Just a single U.S. Marine can land there and prevent this atrocity that is going on. If the United States want to mortgage the oil that is currently there, I know the United States is self-sufficient for oil production here, but they can mortgage the oil and free the innocent genocide that is going against the citizens. It is absolutely immoral. If that is what the United States wants, I think it is an obligation that the United States mortgage the mineral, whatever it is, and allow the citizens to free so that they can return home and believe that they have a place they call home. We have an obligation, fellow United States. Is that the world we are looking forward to? I think we have a duty. We have a moral conscience that judge us that we are in a transition period on this planet we call Earth, and that we have an obligation to protect indigenous areas that we believe that they are in distress. And it's time we do something. We cannot sit and fold our arms and ignore that there is nothing going on. I am appealing to the U.S. Congress. I am appealing to the U.S. Senate. I am appealing to the U.S. Department of Defense. I am appealing to the State Department. It is not by word that you're going to put and condemn. It is about action. A 500 U.S. Marine can be stationed there and ask La Republique, everybody in La Republique, to pull out. And you allow human dignity to live in a proper way. 500 U.S. Marines can station in the Anglophone speaking territory and make a difference and let the human shield that is being slaughtered every day. Are we society that's built on conscience? I think we have an obligation to do something to make a difference. I believe in the United States. I believe that the United States can do something. It is quite painful. It doesn't mean that the United States has to. We have Marine that is already stationed in Africa. It is just an instruction and ask them to take over whatever is happening and ask La Republique to degage, to back out of Southern Cameroon territory completely. And you will see the human living in the forest. You will be amazed how proud they will feel, how they feel when they see the U.S. Marine. I think we are capable to do this. We are capable. Can we do this? I think we should. I think we should. I think United States is capable. United States doesn't need to send Marine here. They're already Marine stationed in Africa. And just an instruction and said they should take over West Cameroon immediately and supervise whatever civilian population in that area. United States CIA can do this. U.S. Congress can do this. The White House can do this. It's not the time to fall and writing resolution, because a dictatorship in a dictator country doesn't care about resolution. We, the Anglo-Saxon culture, believe that we have a document that we respect in which we call law. But in a brutal dictatorship, they do not respect laws. They believe that an order. And that is how they were built up by the French colonial system. They don't believe in the fundamental value of the rule of law. And so therefore, we cannot be debating with them. I believe we can do something. There are over 900,000 civilians living in the forest. And each time 100 of them step out of the forest, they are being killed. Each time 10 of them step out of the forest, you see human beings, you see they have been slaughtered. I believe United States is a government of high moral value. Can we do something? Don't require any shipment of ammunition from the United States. Just the AFRICOM station in North Africa is capable to ask the Republic that they should immediately pull, including the governor. Can we do this? I believe this is not the United States that I believe in. This is not the United States. This is not the United States government that I trust because I believe they can do this. And I think as you are watching this, I believe that the United States is a government that can do this. It can do this. And let the human that is living in the forest can return home and recognize that they have a place called home. We have obligation to do something to make a difference to human dignity. Please, United States, please, CIA, please, Congress, please, the Department of Defense, please, please. Imagine that about 900 people are living in a forest. And each time 10 or 20 of them step out of the forest, they are being slaughtered. Our missionary that left here and traveled was slaughtered. And they haven't recognized that they did something wrong. They haven't. You all know the civilian populations or the women and children from ground north that were simply wandering as the early man. For those who read the history of early man, those women were not different from the early man. They were simply wandering. Basically, they have no food to eat. They were just wandering, the mother and the children. She was just demonstrating. She may have lost the geographical location. They were simply wandering. They didn't know where they were heading to. They didn't even know where they are. But unfortunately, they encounter immoral military of La Republique that they took them instead of providing them food. Those are women and children. No ammunition were found. They have basically nothing to eat. They were simply wandering. And the military would shot those children. It is painful when I see it is immoral. It is absolutely immoral. I think we, as a society, we have an obligation to do something. It is painful. It is absolutely painful that a mother with his little children basically probably lost the geographical locations. They don't even know where they were. They were simply wandering. And unfortunately, they found the military and they thought they were protecting them. And they simply walked towards them. But they pulled them on the side and shot them like animals. And United States still haven't believed that they have an obligation to do something. I think we need a government of responsibility. We are capable to do this. We are a nation built on Christianity. We value human dignity. We are a nation of law. But we can't let go of this. And I am appealing to the U.S. Department of Defense. I am appealing to the U.S. Congress. I am appealing to the U.S. Senate. This is not a question of Democrat, Republican. This is not a question of this. It is about human shield. Can we do something? I think we can. We can. We can. We have a moral obligation to do something and make a difference, a significant difference. That we will stood one day and say we did something significant. Because in a government that lacks responsibility, in a government that lacks moral value, moral conscience, imagine that a human being, his hands were tied. He has no ammunition at that moment. His both hands were tied. He was probably wearing a pajama, so maybe he was pulled out from his house. He was simply not dressed. He probably had just pulled from his house. And his hands were tied behind. His legs were tied behind. and he was placed on the highway for a truck to crush. This is not we, United States, that I believe that we can make a significant difference. I don't have so much to be talking this evening because I'm already exhausted from my job. But I feel that I have an obligation to do something, to speak up. But I believe the US department that I know, the US Congress that I know, is this not the time that we ignore? Let's do something. I want to take a moment to thank all of you watching this evening. Good night.